Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to you about your new music that's coming out next week. How does it feel leading up to next week?
It feels very exciting. Luckily, my distributor has successfully put the song on all the platforms. So things like that can always be a bit, you want to make sure everything's ready for when you are. But yeah, everything's done. So I can just sort of like relax and yeah, wait for Friday, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have any big celebrations planned for the release day?
Not for the release day in particular, but the next weekend, I will be performing two gigs, so on both the Friday and the Saturday. And because the song will only have come out the week before, I guess I'll just use those as like an excuse to celebrate. And also, I'm going to be releasing a live video performance at some point during the week after it's released as well.
I love that. It's really good to
Yeah.
see you back out there and releasing music because I think it's been about 3 years since you released something. So what have you been doing in that time?
Well, in that time, I was in England,
Mhm.
and that was, of course, during the pandemic. And I actually have just been focusing on writing. So I decided not to release, well, I still released two singles, but I had like a whole EP planned, which I decided to put on hold while we were all in isolation. Um, and I just used the time to write. And so I've been, yeah, I guess developing my songwriting skills and my production as well, which has improved uh, like crazy, really, in the last couple of years.
I love that. Do you do the production yourself for the music?
Yeah, like I always have. At least started to produce music myself, like my own music myself. But I think a few years ago, it was definitely at the stage where I needed like co-producers and just a bit of a helping hand. I've
Mhm.
never been so good, and I'm still not great at like the more technical, particular things. But I can definitely, yeah, I'm definitely getting to a point where, like I'll still ask for help for like mixing and mastering, but I'll have produced the entire track myself. So that's cool.
Yeah, I love that. It's like really creative what you do, and it's I guess really good that you have those different skills to combine it all into the one. But is
Yeah.
there any like advantages or disadvantages of doing the majority yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I guess the first advantage would be that if it is all yourself, then it's, I guess, all your like ideas, and there's no one to say that's a bad idea. But then I guess what I'm learning is like, not that I didn't know this before, but what I'm really learning is that like it's okay to pass on skills to someone else. Like, and it's always really good to have like another pair of ears. There are certain things that you might think that are good, but maybe aren't, and vice versa as well. So I guess, yeah, the advantage is it is all your own work and it is usually exactly how you want it to sound. But then, yeah, I think collaboration is also a really important part of like any art, really. Um, yeah,
Yeah, does it feel like isolating sometimes when you're not in that collaboration mindset?
it never has for me. If anything, I've always felt a bit overwhelmed when it is a group. But that is definitely like an issue I have with, I guess it's like perfectionism, but I am very hesitant to like just throw ideas out there like before I've given them the green light. So like jamming, for example, has always been quite difficult. And I think writing with other people for me initially would be quite difficult as well, because I think I'd struggle to gain that confidence to like be silly or like just throw an idea out there and it doesn't matter if, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean. Yeah, that makes total
Yeah.
sense. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited for this release too because
Thank you.
I've listened to the track and I love it. I'm excited for other people to hear it. What are some of the inspirations behind this release?
Thank you, by the way. It's all very kind words. Yeah, I really like the song as well. The inspiration behind the track itself. Well, I think like pretty much everything I've written, it's been inspired by like a life experience. And I don't always know what it's going to be about because typically I will write music first. So then I'll write a melody, say, and then usually the last thing I do is write lyrics to fit that melody that then complete the track. So I'll never really know what the song's going to be about when I start writing it. And I guess at some point, like the mood of the music makes me think of something. And then I'll typically be writing about what it is that I'm thinking of. But in particular with Summer Day, the inspiration behind that track is sort of about it is about like somebody in particular, but speaking broadly, it's about like a relationship has ended and you're still in that part of like the process of like understanding that breakup, where you're sort of looking back at the honeymoon phase as like the ideal, and maybe forgetting about like the reasons why it didn't work out. And so it's supposedly nostalgic. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say it comes to you, like as you're writing, so you got the music part first and then the lyrics come to you. Do sometimes you find that what you're going through, it comes up, and you don't realize that you've gone through that until you're like, actually, now that this fits the melody, like these feelings come up that you didn't realize you had before?
Yeah, definitely. I've always found the songwriting process extremely journalistic. And I'll often have a really good understanding of how I feel about something after I've like listened to the lyrics that are just coming. And I think that's the beauty of sort of writing impulsively rather than having an idea about what you want to write about and then strictly sticking to that, just sort of seeing where that mood takes you. And it's funny, like I've also been able to like, with Summer Days inclusive in this, but there's a lot of songs that I wrote about this one relationship. Lol, get over it. I have, but it's interesting to listen to like the different songs that I was writing, and I can sort of like pinpoint exactly where I was in that like process of gaining closure.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds very
Yeah.
therapeutic as well as being creative. And I guess
Oh,
like
absolutely.
other people relate to it too. Because I mean, we've all been in relationships, and I guess everyone can, I guess, relate to your experience as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So in saying that, like, what do you hope people take away from them when they listen to your songs that you write?
Um, I always try and speak quite vaguely about what a song means because I think like a lot of art, there can be it's all about how the audience, let's say, interprets it as well. Um, but I guess like if we're speaking specifically about Summer Day, then maybe the message is like it's okay to be a bit sad and to like wallow in that sadness and maybe even a bit hopeful that like it will pass and um yeah, you can move on. I mean, at that point that I'd written that song, I had not yet moved on, but the fact that I have maybe since could be like maybe a reminder that it's you can like sit in those feelings and not be scared of like not always feeling great 100%.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good message for sure. And I love Summer Day because the production is really smooth and flows and really like highlights your vocals because it's not like overpowering your vocals. Your vocals is what stands out. Have you had
Yeah.
specific voice training, or does your voice just naturally sound like it is? Because I love it, it's unique.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Um, yeah, I was in the Australian Girls Choir for a very long time. So from the age of about 5 or 6 up until I was 18. And that was like choral training. I've never really done one-on-one training. But I was in the choir for a very long time, and I certainly think that it fostered my like love of singing and appreciation for like all different kinds of music and just for the voice as well as an instrument. Um, I definitely think my time in the choir has influenced even the way that I write my songs now. Like, this actually Summer Day is interesting because it doesn't feature this, but literally every other song I write does. But that's like vocal harmonies. I've always been like a huge fan of like, yeah, just using the voice as an instrument, really. Um, but yeah, I've also always said that just that you and I sound different when we talk, it's everyone would sound different too when they sing. So there is to some extent like a natural timbre of the voice. So yeah, it's I guess both nature nurture in a way.
Yeah, totally. And I love how your sound has evolved over the years too. So I came across your music in 2012, and I feel old saying that because I just realized today that's been like 11 years. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Oh my God, really? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, wow. I've just
expected.
realized right now.
And like that's
Been
been
11
7
years.
years. And I guess yeah, and it's you're obviously, you're developed, your sound has progressed. Do you feel like you're gonna constantly experiment with your sound, or do you feel like you're happy with the sound that you've got now and producing?
Um, that's a good question. I'm definitely happy with the sound I'm making now. But I think it's probably just I think we'll all evolve. Like I think every art does evolve because I think we're constantly being influenced and inspired by things that are going on around us. And as long as that's always changing, then I think like naturally the art you produce will change as well. I mean, it hasn't been like a conscious decision. I just write what I feel. And I guess like over the years, like my production's improved as well. And that's meant that I can like finish songs quicker than I used to and get more of like my ideas. So maybe it's like maybe more of my ideas coming through as well, because I'm like able to actually express those
Yeah.
through I use what do I use? Ableton.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's not conscious, but I'm sure it does happen like subconsciously.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess it's with any artist, as you grow in your personal life, your music's gonna grow with you as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear more about your production process, because I used to watch some of I think during lockdown you'd go on Instagram Live and you'd just like play around with some of the production and do some live videos of you singing. And that was interesting to watch. So how was your production process for this particular release?
Um, how was my, so I open, I guess the first thing I do is I open Ableton. And I think with Summer Day, I was just sort of playing around with like different sounds. And then I think because it's, I use synthesizers, like nothing in Summer Day is a real instrument as such. I mean, I think a synthesizer is a real instrument, but you know what I mean? Um, and I was experimenting with like synthesizers that sound like traditional instruments, like technically kind of lean heavily into it's a synthesizer type of thing. But yeah, I sort of started playing with like a guitar sound, and then I guess that became like a chord structure. And then yeah, I typically like every little bit in a track I've like just included as I've gone, you know, just to add a bit of interest. And then I wrote the lyrics on the train. Um, and once they had come to me, they really came. Like once I sort of figured out the melody that I wanted, then the lyrics came fairly quickly. And I guess because at the time I was like feeling that way so strongly, like it's always quite easy to find the right words, like when you are sitting very strongly with a feeling. Um, but yeah, that's, I guess, I don't know if I've answered your question
You definitely
properly.
have. No, I just wanted to know more about it because I was watching the lives and it was just fascinating watching it and watching you do it live. So
Oh,
to
I see. Like, because I would kind of update, like, I think I know what you mean. Like, I'd show people, I guess I'd walk people through like the demo process.
yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And I guess that's just because, yeah, I think I guess it's fun for me and it's fun well, I hope it's fun for everyone to kind of like see how things go from like the very first time I've input whatever, and then every time I've then worked on it, how it's getting more full and just sounding a little bit more complete.
Yeah.
And I also like feedback as well.
Mm.
So even throughout the process, like kind of see what people are enjoying or yeah.
Yeah, of course. And it's yeah, like thanks for sharing that. It was great to hear like how you produced it along and then being able to hear that final product as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's next for you? So you mentioned before you're working on an EP previously. Is that still something that's gonna come out later?
Yeah, I hope so. I had a session with my the producer who I was working with on that EP. I actually met with him today, and I said, like, I think we made the responsible decision to hold off on the release because if the tracks had been finished, that would have been a different story. But I think I'd underestimated how difficult it would be to finish working on something together, like remotely. I think there's so much that you sometimes can only really explain when you're sitting in the studio together. And I just found that like the mixes I was getting were kind of getting further away from what I'd envisioned, which is no one's fault. I think that's just part of like not being physically together and listening to it in real time together. But now that I've come back to Sydney, I've decided to revisit that project. And I just think it'd be a shame. It'd be a shame not to release those songs, even though I would say I've developed as an artist, and I've got, or I shouldn't say this like leading up to the potential release of this EP, but I've certainly got like stronger tracks. Like I will say that stronger tracks that I could be focusing on, and which I am. But I just think it'd be a shame to like have never released like what I always envisioned as being like my first EP.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if the work's there,
Answer
we need to
yes.
go do it.
I
Yeah,
waffle on.
no,
Sorry.
no, that's totally fine. Like, I love it. And I think that's great too because yeah, if the work's there, may as well release it and have it out there and show people who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's all part of the artist's story as well. And especially for me, because so much of my music is based on things that I have lived through. Um, yeah, it's just sort of, yeah, telling a story. And yeah, I've also got like a music video idea that I've always had for like one of the unreleased tracks from this EP, and I'd still really like to, just for fun, like I'd still really like to plan it and shoot it and release it as well, because just as in art of its own right, you know, like not necessarily as like an accompanying music video, though it would be, but I think just any idea, bringing any idea to life is always like a really exciting process.
I think go for it. Like, do the music video, get it out there. Why not? You know, what
Yeah.
do you feel is really?
Well, exactly. Like, what have you got to lose?
Yeah,
Just money, but that's fine.
in time. But I mean, it's good. It's great to have it out there, and there'll always be like, you know, everyone's got different tastes in music, so it's always going to be a group of people that are going to enjoy it and vibe with it, no matter what.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
play with my hair a lot too. Sorry, you probably
Oh no,
noticed that.
that's all right. No worries at
Not
all.
very good at sitting still.
Someone that's coming across you and your music for the first time, how would you describe like what you're all about artistically for someone that doesn't know you?
That's a really good question, and one that I often find quite hard to answer. Because again, I sometimes think that it's hard to define your own music, but it might be easier for somebody else. I was actually a friend of mine who saw me perform recently. I'm performing at his bar actually in March, but I will make that announcement like a bit closer to. But he'd seen me, and he was talking to me about how to like what kind of blurb to write. And he said that he would describe me as neo soul, which is quite interesting because like I'd never considered that. And I suppose it does make sense. But to anyone who doesn't know me, that's just an example of how like your own perception of your music might not always be like entirely accurate. But in a nutshell, um, I would describe it as a blend of pop, neo soul, and maybe alternative, um, using like electronic instruments to create not necessarily electronic music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I think you actually described it well because being an outsider and listening to your music, like that's how I see it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like you got a big year planned. So you got some gigs coming up. That EP might come out. You talked about a music video. What's your kind of like end goal? What are your aspirations next in music?
I think I just really want to have fun with it. I want to get to a point where like I'm steadily releasing, and I think just maintaining integrity. I think it's really easy to get like swept up in like promotional things or needing to push things. And like, yes, I think self-promotion is necessary at times. But I'm also, I think and maybe this is like a commitment phobic thing of me, but I I don't like to pigeonhole even myself as like just an artist. So like there's lots of things I'm focusing on right now. Music is definitely one of them. But I don't want to like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? When
Like,
you're like laser focused and then kind of everything else gets, because
yeah,
I think, to be honest, I think everything else is also beneficial for like the songwriting
of course.
um process. Exactly. So it would be silly to like not focus on other stuff, because that's often where I actually get the inspiration from anyway.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, just to get to a point where yeah, I'm releasing steadily and like performing more. But otherwise I'm just happy to be able to share like my art with everybody. I guess that's enough for me, to be honest.
I love that. And that's a beautiful gift to be able to